On March 2nd, we gathered at Six Nations to record the stories of Norma Jacobs, knowledge keeper and storyteller.
Norma recounted to us her experience of visiting the places where the great Peacemaker visited along his journey to unite all the nations of the Haudenosaunee.
Recording Norma's stories is a way of creating a living archive, something that can help preserve oral histories and knowledge for future generations.
While we were there in Tyendinaika, and we were on that road, and we there was a place there, a field, and it had all of these pine trees, like new growths coming up. And they told us that that's where the Peacemaker left from, was by the river, and there's all these shrubs and some trees that were there. And they said, we know this is the place because the ripples still happen there. And that place never freezes over on the river. So when you go there and you can see where the ripples, like somebody's paddling into the river, it's still there. You can still see the ripples. And we did, and even for the indentation for where they pushed the canoe into the water, it's still there. That's why they call it Tyendinaika, because it has a split in the river. So, but the where the river splits, that's the one that I know from Jake Thomas. He talks about that, and he talks about that's where that area was where the Peacemaker was for a while. So he used to go hunting there and probably fishing and all of that, because he's that place that I'm describing is not too far from that hill where we went the first time. It was a really powerful place. And anyways, when they crossed the river, because we're close to Kingston, and the one time we took the ferry across to the island there. So we stayed there, and then we journeyed on, and I don't know how we got into the States. Oh, we must have crossed the bridge there. But this other time, we went across into the Adirondacks. We went in there, and we were driving. Well, it was in Saranac Lake that we went to. We traveled that road, and we went into this restaurant. And here at the door, this wooden door, and in that door was a hadui. Could see like its face, and it's like that was so impactful too, because we felt that we were on the right journey, And so we traveled through the mountains, and we came to this one place, and you could see that there was just like there's the lake there. We're going up, and you can't see nothing beyond the top of that hill. And we're driving, I was like, oh my God, like it's the end of the road. And we went down that hill, and at the bottom of that hill, there was a spring. And it had a pipe then. But they said that that's where the runners, when they took messages from the communities, like the Haudenosaunee communities, and they had to go to Albany. So they would stop there, and they would have their little pouches of cornmeal, and they would sit there and they would have their meal and their little carriers for water. When we stopped there, like you could feel there's energy there. And so we sat around there. We had our a lunch packed, and so we had our lunch there. But it was just amazing, and to think how many people had passed in that direction, and they were runners running to take messages to Albany. So that was really something to see that. And the first year we went, I'll never forget that, how Oneida at I think it's 34 acres, they called it back then. And there, I think, is where Oriskany's there. And that was the place where, I don't know if that was the American Revolution, but it was our own people that were on each side of the French and the British, and they invaded the people that were in that site in Oriskany. And so when we went there, we got off the bus and people start walking around, as soon as I stepped on the other side of the fence, and I just start crying, and I didn't know why, but I just start crying, and then people start seeing people running through the bushes there, and there was a lot of spirits there, and they said that was the last time that they ever had a full council, like for the chiefs, and so that was why I wanted the chiefs to go with us to the on that journey, because they hadn't had a full condolence or a council since then. So I wanted them to go there to hear that story, so they could, make their amends and, talk about that, the split and just the whole idea of the conflict, like turning their nations against each other. It was there because it was a site because it had to do with the condolence and how it split the Confederacy. I think when we went to where the Peacemaker, where the tree was, where they challenged him, that town, it's right by the river, the Hudson River. That's where the Peacemaker was challenged for his powers. Yeah. So they cut the tree down, and well, all I know is that it was a pine tree, and that the Peacemaker was challenged to go up there to, if his word was good enough, like if his words were true, that he would survive the fall. And if he didn't, they wouldn't be worried about him. So they said that if you survive the fall, then we'll believe you into the river. And so he agreed to that. And so he climbed that tree, and they chopped it down, and they watched it fall into the river, and they said nobody will survive that because of the rocks and the water coming over the falls. And they said that here the next day they seen the smoke rising from across the river, and they said, well, we have to go and check to see what's going on there. And here they got there, and here the Peacemaker was sitting there having his meal, whatever, and had a fire going. And so they took him back to their village and said, well, he survived that fall, so we're going to accept the law that he was bringing about peace. When I was there, there was no water, but a trickle of water running through the river. And but you could see all these rocks at the bottom, and they look like graves. Like, it reminded me of a story of Anson, like when he talked about he could smell the berries. Well, there, like when we were walking, there's all of these strawberries growing along the path, and you could see the wild grapes, and the trees were in blossom, but it was just so calm and peaceful there. And that drop from that place where I said I seen that tree, like it was huge. That was weird too, that place, because they said that where Taradaho was sitting was on this rock. That's where he was sitting when the clan mother came to condole him, to do the ceremony, because the people couldn't get close to him because he was so powerful that they said that he had these snakes that were hanging from his hair. That was his hair, and that no matter how they approached him, that he would just let out this cry, and so the canoes would start to rock and overturn. So they couldn't get to him to give him this message of peace, and so they left, and that's when I think they approached him twice, and then they thought that they would bring Jigosa. So they brought her, and they told her that what problems they were having in approaching him, because they wanted to give him this message. And they told him that he could still be powerful, but in a good way, and that he wouldn't, didn't have to be so angry and so fierce. So, anyways, they brought her because they sang a song first. They wanted to approach Taladaho, and he just got really angry and made the waves really high, so they couldn't reach him. And then the next time they brought the Jigosa, and she managed to talk to him, which is where they said that she massaged his body. So to me, that meant that she had these kind words, and she had a conversation with him to soothe him, whatever he was angry about. They didn't know what had caused him to be that way. Anyways, she massaged his body, and the snakes fell from his hair. And he's he was all had really bad arthritis or something, but he was all crooked, and his body straightened out, and he became like a healed person. And when we went to Kiva Lake, that was in past Onondaga territory. That's where they talk about where they found the wampum, was at Kiva Lake. While the Peacemaker was traveling, and he came upon him, and that he was so devastated. He wouldn't talk or anything, and he was stringing these little beads across these two, there's two branches, and then they had a stick across, and he had those beads. Hayo one was talking, and he was putting those beads because he was watching the water, and he said that if somebody in the future, that if they are having the same experience that Hiawatha was having, because he had lost his daughters, and he said that's how he would like for that water just to be calm, and to bring them back to that place of we say and this Guyanda coming back to balance. And so he said that that's how he would see it, as people's minds would be able to just be flowing nicely, and have those little sparkles on the water. And so when the Peacemaker phoned him, and he wasn't responding because he was asking what was wrong with him. And he wouldn't respond. He was just quiet because his mind was shut down, and his hearing and his speech, because he was so filled with sadness. And so he talked to him, and he just kept watching him. What Hiawatha was doing was placing those beads over that I don't know what you call it. And so the Peacemaker used those beads and he talked back to him and used those strings. And that's how they do their ceremony to condole chiefs today.
For this project, we used Terra Story's map of Haudenosaunee lands that is being created by the Oneganos team. Placing Norma's story at the location she visited onto the map is another way of honoring her knowledge and experience and connecting it to the land.
Wow, that was really powerful. We're doing the right thing.
Mhm.
You know.